Yo, what is up guys? Welcome back to a brand new F1 2021 esports video. This is round 2 China and probably my best race of the year. We're gonna be doing a last to first challenge in F1 esports, or kind of. But yeah, we're starting P14, so let's head into it. Alright, so now loading into the race, first thing you see is full wet conditions. And you can see there halfway through the race it's going to dry up to intermediate conditions, and then later on it's going to go to overcast conditions, so it should be dry. But yes, also sorry, there's no sound in these races. We were not very focused on the content side of things before the first event, as there were performance patches from the game, and was pretty chaotic also moving to the UK, so we were not very focused on the content stuff and more focused on the performance, as we were trying to get the most out of it. One of those things were practicing in wet and intermediate conditions, and in these kind of conditions that's gonna pay off. And you can see me just before the end there, I put on the intermediate tires, and the reason for that is not because it will be intermediate conditions at the start, but if it changes to intermediate conditions, you have to make one pit stop less, which is around 20 seconds. So if the whole field cannot get that 20-second advantage before it dries up, then that means we're going to be in the lead, because everyone on the grid is on wet compound tire. And even though we might lose a lot of time in the beginning, you can see there I'm trying to put temperature into the tires and they are just not working at this point, which is very, very scary, because if a tire does not work in a certain condition, that means you're gonna be losing 5 to 10 seconds per lap. So on the formation lap, it's the first time you're testing out the conditions. You can see there coming out of the hairpin, wheel spin in 5th gear. Your heart is like in your throat. It's very scary, because going to the inters was my call. So if I mess it up, I might lose crucial points in the Constructors and Drivers Championship. Even though from P14 maximum we can probably get is P8, P9, they can be still very important points at the end of the year. So now at the start grid, I was very nervous, because I've still got 6 people behind me on full wet compound that I know are going to be a lot faster off the line. But now we're going to head into the race, 5 red lights, and away we go. Initially a pretty good start, but then as I go up in the gears, you can see we're absolutely nowhere. And now going into turn 1, I'm already got past Alvaro Carreton and Michael Romanidis, or I mean, they got past me. And going through turn 1, you can see I'm super scared, because everyone is diving down my inside, because I've got no grip and I'm just trying to get out of the way, but at the same time not lose too much time. And you can see here on the exit, Philip Pragen here overtake me, and for a very brief moment we are in last position. And then going into the hairpin, Simon Weigang and David Tunitsa crashed. Our teammate Danny Moreno going very wide. And then Cedric Tomei gets me on the exit, because I still have absolutely no grip on these intermediates. I decided to let Cedric go here. I don't want to be a burden in his race, and there's no point fighting him, because we might just end up losing even more time, or may lose more time. So yeah, now David Tunitsa behind us. I think David does not have damage, but Simon does. So you can see Nicolas Longue going out wide. He also has front wing damage. So we've lost basically 2 positions so far. No, I'm not saying that right. We've lost 4 positions, but Nicolas Longue is going to have to pit for a new front wing very shortly. So you can see there, even though Nicolas has like half a front wing, he's still faster through that long right-hander, which just shows that we have absolutely no grip at the moment. You can see me ask for a weather report. We cannot hear that because I have no game sound. As I said, we were not very focused on the content side of things. I'm going to down the inside with Nicolas Longue, a bit of a tap, as Fabricio Donoso is up front. And I think at this point in time, others were kind of expecting that I was in the fight for the win, because even though we've probably lost like 4 or 5 seconds to the people that are in clear air, You don't know when it's going to dry up, as the in-game predictions are not completely accurate. You see David Tunitsa has so much more grip than me and Nicolas. This is the corner Nicolas struggling the most at, the long right-hander with that front wing damage, of course. And then through the mechanical grip section, he's just absolutely bolting away because he has so much more traction on that exit. He just gains like half a second just on the corner exit alone. But just in the first sector, we have already lost around 1.5 seconds to David Tunitsa. And over a lap, as the first sector is not the longest one, it's going to be around 6-7 seconds. So it will only take 3 laps before we lose that pit stop distance, which was scary, very, very scary at the time. You can see Nicolas struggling again through that downforce section. He's making us lose a lot of time at this point in the race because we're just not fast enough to overtake. But yeah, at the same time, we are a bit faster. It's just we are fast in different positions on track, which makes it very, very annoying. He goes wide again because of the front wing damage. Simon Weigang now behind us. Well, I'm not sure actually has damage. But Joni Tormela has gone into the pits for intermediates as well. I think he pitted at the end of lap 1. Well, he has to. And he was 24 seconds behind. So, yeah, he lost around 24 seconds just making that pit stop. I don't know if he pitted that early because of front wing damage. But at this point in the race, wets are clearly still faster. So there's no point for the wet runners to box at this time because they're going to lose that pit stop anyway. And they will only lose more ground to the other wet runners. So Marcel Kiefer did a 1:45 low, and we are doing a high 1:50, which means we've lost well over 5 seconds just on that last lap, plus around 5 seconds from the first lap, which means we're already half a pit stop lost to Marcel Kiefer, who's leading at the moment. Barry Burmont in P2, Lucas Blakely in P3, and then I think Fabrizio Donoso in P4. But you can see now David Tunitsa 3 seconds ahead, as I feel like we're slowly starting to lose less and less time at the moment. As I'm actually not sure if David Tunitsa has damage or not, but I don't think he does. We've only lost around 2 seconds on that last lap, if you compare it to the last lap going through the first sector. So that's pretty decent. Simon Weigang does have damage because he just lost time to us. Nicolas Longo has gone into the pits as well. We've gone green in the first sector, which is a good sign, but we need to go 5 seconds green to basically be equal to Marcel Kiefer. And now we're 2 seconds green going into the final sector. You can see that in the top right, not anymore, but we're 2 seconds up on our lap, which means we're probably only going to lose around 2 seconds on this lap. So it is drying up quite clearly. The intermediates are up to temperature now, and now we can start to push a little bit harder, especially at the start. I could not put my throttle down, I could not put any steering lock on, I couldn't brake hard at all, otherwise I was just locking up and skating across the asphalt. There's our teammate Danny Moreno pits, which I felt at the time was too early, but he's going to take the gamble as everyone saw my lap time dropping very fast, of course. 2 seconds faster than the last lap, which means we've still lost around 3.5 seconds to Marcel Kiefer on this lap. We're not losing as much time to David Tunitsa, but he might have damage, as I said earlier on, from that crash earlier on, just like Simon Weigang. And then Frederick Trome is in dirty air, or in the train of cars, so they're not going as fast as the leaders. But at the moment, it is looking not too bad if it keeps drying up. But as you can see now, going to the first sector, we went green, but we only went green by 300ths. And if we lose 3.5 seconds again for another 2 or 3 laps, our pit stop is gone. So we really need to hope at this point in the race that it starts drying up a little bit faster. Even though we're not losing as much time to the midfield runners, we are losing that much to the leaders. Going into the last sector now, 3 tenths up, so slight improvement compared to the last time around. And again, through the long right-hander, still not much grip. You can see I cannot put the throttle down, and we're losing a lot of time through that corner compared to David Tunitsa. I'm not gonna try and use all of my overtake at this point in the race, as I also need to manage tires. Of course, people that are gonna pit probably will recharge their battery to 100%. So if they come out close to me, then I need to be ready with my battery. Also, my tires are gonna be a lot older than the others. So even if I do take the lead of the race when everyone else pits, then they're gonna have a lot fresher tires, of course. And as you guys might know, China is an absolute tire killer. So I'm gonna have to nurse these tires home, otherwise we will simply not make it to the end. Or we need to hope for dry conditions. Now, 5 seconds behind David Tunitsa. So yeah, it's not looking very good at the moment. Again, 3-second loss on the last lap to Marcel Kiefer. So we've probably had a total loss of around 18-19 seconds to Marcel Kiefer at this point. And that is more or less that pit stop window. But you can see now, the asphalt is slightly drier than before. And going through this left-hander, you can see in the top left, we're not losing time anymore to David Tunitsa. We're gaining time for the first time in this race to the wet runners. And you can see I straight away have so much more confidence as the tires are finally starting to work. We've gained now 2-3 tenths to David Tunitsa just in the middle sector. And this is the crossover point where we're going to start gaining time. 6 tenths up going through into the final sector. And it's only going to get more. You can see the asphalt is just so much more drier. Puddles are gone. And a dry line is starting to form going through the final sector now. Half a second gain to David Tunitsa just in the middle sector alone. And even more to Cedric Tomei, as David Tunitsa is stuck behind Cedric Tomei at this point. You can see there in the bottom left, 1 Alpine, 1 McLaren, 1 Ferrari, and 1 Aston Martin is pitting. But the leaders are staying out, as they don't know at this moment that the intermediates are faster, which is crucial for a race, because we want the leaders to lose as much time as possible. Fabrizio Donoso, when he got into the pits, was P4. You can see we said a 1:47.1, and Fabrizio Donoso was P4 at the time. As he comes out of the pits, he is 7 seconds behind us, and he was not 7 seconds behind the leaders, which means we are currently net leaders of this race after starting P14 and being last in the first lap. Joshi Dowu, one of the midfield runners, 9 seconds behind us. But we should not forget that I've done a lot more laps than the others on that set of intermediates. Coming across the line, fastest lap of the race. All 3 sectors, all purple. Marcel Kiefer just coming out of the pits as we go into turn 1. And you can see, going through turn 1, Fabrizio Donoso has moved himself up to a net P3, fighting Marcel Kiefer into turn 1. But we're 6 seconds ahead of Marcel Kiefer at this point in the race. Joni Tormela sets the fast lap of the race, half a second faster than us. So what we have to do now is try and keep our pace up and not destroy our tires, which is going to be very, very hard. Because, as I said, it's going to dry up, which will increase the tire wear. And at the same time, we need to keep a very high pace to not have the others catch up to us. Because a 6-second lead sounds a lot, but from here on to the end of the race, that will only average a 4/10 loss per lap. So even if we only lose 3-4 tenths per lap, which wouldn't even be that bad on this old set of tires, we would lose the lead by the end of the race. Even though it's not very easy to pass others in wet conditions, because DRS is deactivated. You can see Alvaro Carreton has lost 5 or 6 seconds on this last lap to us, as the wets are just absolutely burning up. Frederick Rasmussen, who started very solid, I think P3, P4, P5 in this race, is still out on the wets because they could not pit Marcel and Frederick at the same time, which is absolutely screwed Frederick over, because now he still has to make a pit stop. He's lost around 5-6 seconds on the last lap, as Alvaro stays out for some reason. I have no idea why he did that. I was very confused by that. As we now set a fast lap of the race, we get past Alvaro into turn 1, who is not a part in this race anymore. Fabrizio Donoso, 1:43.6. Brendan Lee, 1:43.4. So we've lost around 2 tenths to Fabrizio Donoso on the last lap, which are more the numbers I like to see, as that would be a little bit more comfortable. Now moving on to lap 15, quite a jump But you can see Marcel Kiefer in those 8-9 laps has only gained around 2.5 to 3 seconds. So we have managed our tires pretty well so far in the race while pushing on very, very hard. 3.2 seconds now. As you can see, it has started to dry up more and more as you look at asphalt, and there are no more raindrops, so it has completely stopped raining, and it's a fact that we're gonna have to move on to the slicks. Fabrizio Donoso is the first one to pit, and I was thinking about pitting, but after my huge risk on the intermediates, I felt like it was not very necessary, because even if we lose 3-4 seconds by staying out, we will still probably win the race, because as I said, 1 lap more on the softs is quite the pace difference. Now DRS is enabled, so Fabrizio Donoso has probably nailed the timing there. And on this in lap, you can see I just don't have as much grip anymore compared to Marcel Kiefer. You can see he's gaining all the time through this middle sector. So it has started to dry up at the perfect moment for us. You can see going through this long left-hander, rears are absolutely burning. You can see my rear tire temperature has skyrocketed, and I've just lost over half a second in the space of 3-4 corners to Marcel Kiefer. Which, yeah, it's just because our tires are older. We don't have the grip to keep our tires cooler in these conditions. So our interslicks are not working great at this moment. You can see Nicolas Longe, fast lap on the race. He's on the softs, which shows how good the slicks are working at the moment. Around 7/10 faster than our fastest lap, and we've lost a lot of time on this lap. We've lost around a second to Marcel Kiefer, as now we're definitely going to box for the soft compound tires to the end of the race. Into the pits, taking it a little bit careful, bit of a snap, which I get a lot on that pit entry, and now save on the pit entry, boxing for a brand new set of soft tires. Don't need to be scared to be held up, because you will ghost to make it more fair. As in F1 Esports, the gaps are way closer, so that means there are always more people bunched up going into the pits, and if you're first in the pit lane, that will be very unfair. But now coming out onto the track, Fabrizio Donoso has absolutely nailed his pit stop to the slick tires and has managed to go into a net P1. But let's not forget, he is on a 1 lap older tire, and we have no idea how hard he has pushed with his ERS on that outlap. Now 6/10 ahead of us, which means we're going to get DRS into the hairpin now. You can see Fabrizio locks up the rears, which just shows how treacherous the conditions are at this point in the race. We're right with him now, and we've got a full battery to play with, fresher tires, and we're still 2 seconds ahead of Marcel Kiefer, going through the middle sector now. Really had to get a feel for the car, of course, after driving on very poor intermediates in full wet conditions, and also a full wet setup does not work very well. It's not very balanced in these dry conditions, so I had to feel my way around the track for that first outlap. But we're straight away gonna go on the attack here, because I don't want to wait around any longer behind Fabrizio Donoso. We're gonna turn on the overtake button, turn on the DRS, and you can see there I turned on off my overtake button, as I felt like I was easily gonna make the move into the hairpin. I leave the space to Fabrizio on the outside, and up to P1 we go. Fabrizio tries to go for the switchback, but we manage to stay ahead, and up to P1 we go again for the second time this race, and we've got a lot of ERS to play with. On the long back straight you could see Fabrizio's light, rear light was flashing, which means he was under 10% ERS. So at this point we've got the upper hand with the fresher tires and the 70% more ERS. So just need to nurse these tires, not push them too hard, because as I said before, China is a tire killer and we do not want to overheat the tires. Even though it's still a little bit wet, you don't really see that it's wet at all anymore, but you can see me going through the hairpin, sliding around, which just shows that the grip is not quite there yet. So I'm using a little bit of ERS to make sure I'm clear before going on to the long back straight. Marcel Kiefer almost in the DRS of Fabrizio Donoso. Once again, Red Bull, our main rivals this season, together with Lucas Blakely and Aston Martin, are not doing great. Fredrik Rasmussen is out of the points after a strong qualifying. It almost looked like the championship was already slipping away from me after disqualifying, as I went out in Q2 after a mistake into the hairpin we're coming up to. But now we are purple sector 1, purple sector 2, and Fabrizio Donoso is still right with us, but there's only 2 laps to go, and we still have those fresher tires, of course, and also a lot more ERS to play with. Into the final corner now, 5th gear, taking it a little bit safe. As you can imagine, we have nothing to gain anymore and everything to lose. Fastest lap of the race with a 1:32.9, which is more towards the faster dry lap times. Our teammate Danny Moreno, fastest lap of the race now, was trying to catch up and get into the points of that midfield train that is behind Marcel Kiefer. And now 1.5 lap to go. Purple sector 1 again. You can see Fabrizio Donoso is pushing as hard as he can. Cedric Tomei puts another fast lap of the race. We have not won this race yet because you can see Fabrizio is pushing as hard as he can, and he's right with us through this middle sector, even though he has the dirty air and the older tires. His pace is phenomenal in these conditions at the moment. 6/10 now. Probably pushed a little bit too hard because he just dropped 2/10 to the double left-hander, which usually means you're overheating the tires. And now for the second last time, we're gonna go on to the long back straight. Gonna use a little bit of my ERS to make sure Fabrizio's not gonna do anything into the hairpin. And you can see we've got so much more straight line speed, probably because we have that much more ERS to play with, and you can use only like 50% in a single lap. So we can use basically as much as we want going into the final lap of this race. Tires are feeling good now. Coming across the line, is it gonna be another fastest lap? It is a 1:32.4. Fast lap of the race again. Most likely gonna get broken by someone who was pitted very late on. Lucas Blakely has already broken it. Was trying to defend from Barry Wormand for P4. But as I said, Simon de Weigang is ahead of us, almost being lapped as he made an extra pit stop for new slicks to try and get the fastest lap. But now into the hairpin for the final time, going into sector 2 in this race. 7.5 tenths out of Fabrizio, and we're probably going to need at least half a second going into the long back straight to be safe. But as we said before, our tires are fresher, and I still think that I have quite more ERS, as I think Fabrizio had to push really hard to make sure he stayed in the DRS. Marcel has dropped off a bit in the last few laps, maybe struggling with the balance on that wet setup on dry conditions, or maybe he just gave up on P2 and felt like he was not going to make it anyway. On to the final straight now. You can see we've almost managed to break the DRS, but Fabrizio will get DRS still, as the detection point was a few corners back, but we're still going to break the 1 second mark. On this last lap of the race, we're free from Fabrizio Donoso, going towards the final corner. Simon Weigang, as I predicted, sets the fast lap of the race, but we're going to win the Chinese Grand Prix in 2021 F1 Esports ahead of Fabrizio Donoso after starting P14 on the grid and dropping to last place on the opening lap on those intermediates. My best F1 Esports race ever, not because of the driving, but because of the crucial decision making and the calculated risk. I knew that going on Inters was a huge risk, and it might have not paid off, and that would have been very disappointing if I missed out on a few points, which could be crucial later on. But now we've got the full 25 points, and we're equal with Lucas Blakely in the championship standings. We take the lead in the constructors after our teammate Danny Moreno managed to get up to P8. We're pretty far ahead of Red Bull now, will be expected to be our main threat this season, but I've started off very, very slow after a poor first race, and now again after Marcel Kiefer leading the first 6 laps of the race by quite a margin, dropped to P3. So amazing race for us in the championship. I hope you guys enjoyed this last to first challenge in F1 Esports. Make sure to like and subscribe if you guys want to see more. And see you guys next time. Ciao.